This is episode 44 with Tim Corrigan.
Everybody has their role and knows their role. And you know, the fun part about that is that your talent is the front face of who you are.
This is the Sports Business Classroom audio experience. If you recognize the voice, let me put a name with it. I'm Bo Estes, a host on NBA TV and an announcer on NBA.com. I'm one of the instructors at SBC. Welcome to the show. Now, breaking into the world of sports can seem daunting, but if you're looking for a leg up, you've come to the right place. Each week, we talk to top-notch figures all across the industry to bring you lessons and advice to learn from. Thanks for spending some time with us today, and let the experience begin. Landing a job in the NBA is no easy feat, no matter if it's as a player, front office exec, agent, or even in the league offices. But one surefire way to put yourself ahead of a competitive talent pool is an extensive knowledge of the collective bargaining agreement. And Larry Kuhn is undoubtedly, and I can't stress this enough, undoubtedly the leading expert on planet Earth on the subject, and he's been teaching the material to teams, agents, media, and students now for over 20 years. And for the first time ever, he has an online course containing all of his material available for purchase to the general public. CBA Mastery with Larry Kuhn is available on demand with no expiration, so you'll have access to this material whenever you need it. To learn more and enroll, please visit sportsbusinessclassroom.com today. The Sports Business Classroom audio experience is brought to you by Hall Pass Media and Hall Pass Studios. Hall Pass Media is a full-service marketing agency that specializes in brand consulting, event management, digital marketing, and creative design. Hall Pass has a wide range of clients and partners that include the NBA Summer League, the NBA Coaches Association, and the Basketball Tournament, just to name a few. For more information, please visit hallpassnetwork.com. Do you love the game of basketball? And do you ever wonder what goes on in the moments leading up to making a selection in the NBA draft or at the trade deadline? If so, let us take you there. The Sports Business Classroom Draft Academy will take place March 5th through the 10th and provide attendees with an immersive experience like no other. This virtual event will bring together some of the top professionals and decision makers in sports and place attendees in the exact same scenarios executives face in pressure situations. Courses and event exercises will focus on free agency, the draft, trade deadline, player evaluation, salary cap, and much, much more. So here's your chance to prove you have what it takes. Invest in your future. Sign up now and register at sportsbusinessclassroom.com. To give you an idea of how long Tim Corrigan has been working at ESPN, I want to express this just a little differently than in years. Tim Corrigan has been working at ESPN since the Ronald Reagan administration. He's been with the company since 1987. Now, currently, he's a senior coordinating producer for the NBA on ESPN and ABC. In this role, Tim oversees the game production of ESPN's national broadcasts and still gets involved as a game producer for ABC games. His job allows him to work with some of the biggest and best names in the business, some you know, like Jeff Van Gundy, Mark Jackson, and Mike Breen, and some you don't, like the talented crew that comes together behind the scenes to make these broadcasts a success. Tim's a television veteran that knows what it takes to produce a great game and also has some advice for people trying to climb the ladder in the business of basketball and broadcasting. So with that, here's Tim Corrigan. Tim Corrigan from ESPN, thanks so much for joining us. I think what's funny is people hear the job television producer, but they don't exactly know what an NBA game producer does. So let's start really broad. Tell me exactly what it is that you guys do ideally.
Well, in the perfect world, we'll start at the end and work our way backward, meaning the end being the live event that you're watching, that we're documenting the event, We're telling stories about the players that are playing. We're making you care more about the teams, about the players. We're bringing in technology and innovation to continue to make people think, how did they do that? And wow, what really cool angles you're using, or interesting replays or graphics or whatever it might be. So the end game is the documentation of the sporting event that you're watching. Prior to that, what goes into that, we're kind of similar to the teams that we go cover. We have an organization, a producer is like a head coach. And so that head coach has assistant coaches who he meets with, or he or she meets with during the week to plan out stories we want to tell, graphics we want to use, camera angles, how we want to shoot things, anything that's happening in the NBA world that might be beyond the two teams we're talking about, that might be important, anything that's happening in the sports world, and by extension, our country. So you have those meetings internally with your group, then you meet with your talent and find out things that they care about or interesting takes they might have. As you get closer to the event, the producer and director will sit down and talk about, again, execution of the broadcast, what might be different in a building on a given night for a given game. And then you as you get day of, you're meeting with players and coaches and other people in the organization to kind of get the latest of what's going on with them. So by the time you've actually sat down to produce the event, you have more information than you could ever fit into a 2.5-hour window, right?
But that's good. That's a good thing.
It's a perfect thing, Bo, because the real trick of the whole thing is to never not have the game be the star. The game itself is the star of what you're doing. And all these other things that we do, the sound bites, the sit downs, and all the other production enhancements we have, they have a place. But the really fun part about producing is trying to figure out where it fits, when it fits, why it fits, without ever not making the game the star.
I'm thinking about like your process in getting ready for a game, and I'm imagining in a regular season situation, the window starts a little earlier, maybe 48 hours or maybe even farther back. I've told people in the past that once I'm rolling on a season, there's a level of knowledge I have, and then there's specific stuff I want to add for the particular thing I'm working on. But I wonder with you, what's the difference between sort of a regular season and I assume in the playoffs you may be doing back-to-back, so it's quicker turnaround and a tighter research and production process.
Yeah, but when you're in the playoffs, a lot of times, like when we get to the conference finals and the NBA finals, you're so locked in on the two teams you're doing, right? Mm-hmm. Yep. And so literally you're tweaking from game to game because it's the same matchups. You're seeing what different strategies coaches are going to roll out. Again, when we're down at that level, it's Mike Breen, Mark Jackson, Jeff Van Gundy, Doris Burke, or last year Rachel Nichols on the sidelines. And Mark and Jeff, in their own way, are thinking and coaching out loud how the game is going. So again, we're meeting with the teams and the coaches and people like that. And then these guys have their own take. And you can't replace what a 17-year point guard in the NBA sees on the court during the game. And as we all know, Mark was a very successful coach as well. And then, Jeff is a basketball lifer from his dad being a Division III coach into he and Stan playing and becoming coaches. So these two guys are savants about the sport, and just you can get so dialed into a series. It's really a fun, exciting thing to do because you feel like you can move forward on things because you're so close to it.
Take me behind the curtain. I hadn't anticipated going in this direction, but take me behind the curtain. You're in a tight moment in an important game, and Mark Jackson sees something that it's important. He wants to communicate that to you. Then you have to execute what he's trying to explain. How does that process work?
We have a talk back in our production trucks where, while we're on air at any point, Mike, Mark, Jeff can press a button to alert us of something that they see that might be going on. And it happens all year long. And you know what? It happens with everybody. It happens with Dave Pash and Mark Jones and Hubie Brown and Doris Burke and Richard Jefferson and Ron Rucco. Like it's a nice way of being able to communicate what they see at courtside that we don't see. Because
Sure.
again, whether we have 5 cameras there or 50 cameras there, and that is probably the swing during the course of the year, they'll still see things and find things. Again, part of it due to their location, but the other part just due to having spent so much time around this game and being so knowledgeable about everything about the game.
That's interesting. You pointed out something I hadn't heard it was that big of a number. The disparity in cameras between a preseason game could be 5 and an NBA Finals Game 7 could be 50. Right? It's that much of a difference.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it's like anything else we do. You're going to on your biggest opportunities, you're going to have your most resources on
Sure.
your most watched stuff, and that's not uncommon in the industry at all for football either. From a preseason NFL game to the Super Bowl, it's a large swing between one to the other. So I'd say common amongst all of us in all our sports.
I had a conversation a few months ago with Jeremy Levin, who's, I don't know if you know him, the Inside the NBA producer. And I talked to him. It's funny because you said it. I said, to me, producers are like coaches and the talent is like the players on the field. And you've got a whole organization. Is that a fair approach in your mind, or is that a fair metaphor in your mind to look at the system?
Definitely. Everybody has their role and knows their role. And you know, the fun part about that is that your talent is the front face of who you are, right? When you're thinking about, you know, our ABC coverage of the NBA, you're thinking about Mike and Mark and Jeff. If you're thinking about Inside the NBA, you're thinking about Ernie and Kenny and Charles and Shaq, and that's what you're going to associate with.
Yep.
And so, yeah, with them being that, and to me, they just make the experience better. That's what they do through their knowledge, but also through their humor and their chemistry. And I think those two groups that I mentioned have long-lasting chemistry that happened before anybody ever sat down to call a game.
Do you see that happen over time?
It does happen over time, but I think in the case of Mike and Mark and Jeff, there was already a friendship, a mutual respect, right, which is a big part of it, and that we were able to tap into. But all credit to those guys for, you know, when you're doing a 3-man broadcast too, you have to be unselfish. You can't show up with, here's what I have to do tonight because I have to fulfill that. They don't show up that way at all. They show up with every intention of making the game the thing. And then along the way, to me, I always find our best moments to be the ones that are least scripted.
Really? Why is that?
Because again, people are reacting on instinct and knowledge. You know what I mean? And finding things in the game that you might never have talked about, you know, sitting and having dinner or whatever, but it's in the moment that you recognize it.
I found that I have learned a lot in like meetings during the day when you're talking to different members of the production staff, talent, whatever. Tell me what those exchanges are like for you, like on a game day meeting, what you're trying to accomplish, and you know, what that exchange is like.
With the talent, we talk strictly broad strokes, and here's why. If you get too deep into things that you're going to talk about in the game, a lot of times I've found over the years, the first thing they say is the best thing they say. And them trying to recreate that later is never as effective.
Oh.
So again, with our group of people that we have, you know, a bunch of the play-by-plays and analysts that I've mentioned, we're fortunate because we've had a pretty good runway of all working together for you know, a number of years. And so what you enjoy is, you know, more about them personally, you know, more about, you know, their life away from this and their families and things like that. And you find common things that you care about, right? Or whatever. And that, to me, developing that relationship and that closeness, allows you to build a trust that then goes on the air, and to me makes all the difference in the world.
I always felt it was a bit of a traveling family after a while on the road when we would go on playoffs, and I was part of a game crew for a few years, and you're together for a month at a time, a month and a half. It felt like a traveling family. Is that something that you see as well?
Well, Bo, we just spent the family loaded up the wagon and went down to Orlando.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Right, for about whatever 8 weeks, 9 weeks, whatever it was, and so that was truly.
You got real close.
The epitome of what you're talking about, but it was an extended NBA family, right? With us, ESPN, ABC, Turner, the NBA, and literally for all of us to live together, work together, come back to the same hotel at night together, whatever it might have been. That was the greatest example that I've been involved in my career of, under the circumstances that we had, for everybody to bond and look out for each other and ultimately do the right thing. It was terrific. It was really just a wonderful experience.
What did you learn from that experience? Because it just seems like something that is so unique that's happened in your career that there's nothing really to compare it to.
Nah, it really wasn't. You know what? To me, whenever I think of that, I think collaboration of what we all collectively pulled off. People probably won't remember, but I do. Before we got ready for the bubble, we were doing. We had NBA players playing games of horse on cell phones that we were turning into primetime programming.
Yeah.
Because nothing was going on.
You needed something.
Really, nothing was going on, and that ultimately turned to engaging with the league and having meetings about, this potential for a bubble, and, many Zoom calls turning into on-site surveys and looking at what the buildings were that we saw and what needed to be, constructed and built out, just for health and safety and all the technical that went into it, and, building the virtual fans around, and literally the collaboration that occurred to pull that off, all under the banner of what the league did on health and safety. What they did on health and safety was amazing. Spectacular. There was not a day, if you're living in that bubble going to work, that you knew someone wasn't taking care of you, and by extension, your responsibility was to take care of the next person.
What was interesting, I talked to a couple of people that were in there on the Turner side, and if they said that they go down there and, you're nervous, you're naturally nervous. We're in a pandemic and everything. And then at some point it shifted about a few days into where you realized, I'm in the safest place in the country right now. I'm really and these people have done a wonderful job. Did you experience a similar feeling at some point?
Absolutely. I think everybody had their own level of anxiety coming into it about what it was, and could we actually do this, and is this realistic? And I think once you got down there and you realized what was going on and the level of attention paid to this, it really became each individual recognizing we all have to put all our chips in, because anybody could bring this down.
Yep.
Nobody wanted to be that person. And literally people were looking out for each other. If you need a day off just because you're worn out, or your, mental health day, whatever the case was, there was no questions asked. It was whatever is best for you is what we all need to do.
Well, and there were some, you had the coverage of the games and the work and everything, but there were some just long hours alone in the room or just alone on that campus, weren't there? That's where it can get trying.
Oh, definitely. Absolutely. And so, one of the great things is we had a large outdoor area where you could go and go walk, go run, go play golf. Again, because you're looking at, I think I was there for 84 days. That's a long time. And we had technicians who were there over 100 days.
Wow.
So it's just really a long time. But again, by having built relationships, not just with your talent, but with everybody who's involved in all the shows, the camera, audio, video, drivers, like everybody was all in it together.
It's a family.
And really, that's what pulled it through was this sense of community and this sense of we're all doing this together. And I think everybody realized when you were down there, this is going to be a really special thing in all our careers.
How's your job different now in January of 2021 than it was in January of 2020? Like, how's it different to execute a game and stuff like that?
Oh, it's totally different. It's totally, the last big show that I remember doing was, that Remembering Kobe event that we did when the Trailblazers came to LA, and and again, like everybody, before we got there, I had watched the images on television, on the internet, on social media, anywhere that you wanted to find it. But when you physically, Amina Hussein, who used to work with us and run the studio out there, I was talking to her because she lives in LA and was working there. And I kept talking to her in the lead up because we were planning out integration and things we were going to do. And she's like, Tim, you're not going to believe it until you see it. And I'm like, I know, I'm seeing all these images. She's like, yeah, I know you are, but when you get here, you're not going to, it's incredible. And so I remember flying in and landing and just going and walking around Staples and LAPC and there was an emotion and a feeling there that was just so powerful and overwhelming. And I know, Lisa Salters was working at the event with us. She had a relationship and a friendship with Kobe, and she went out and experienced, and Mike Breen, same thing, and Mark Jackson and Jeff, and we all on our own took time to walk around. Jimmy Moore, our director, and just kind of walk around and see what it is, because the responsibility we had of doing that show the next night, and what that was going to be.
Did you feel that weight? Like, this is important. The basketball community needs to get this. We need to feel this right.
100%. 100%. And it was just overwhelming, the amount of people who were everywhere, right? So you take that scene and everything that was going on. And again, that was January of 20. And then Christmas Day in LA this year, where literally our same crew is there doing the game.
Yep.
And there's nobody anywhere.
Wow.
There's nobody on the streets. There's nobody in that LAPC. There's nobody anywhere around Staples. There's nobody in the JW Marriott Hotel except us. The lobby is empty. And it was just incredible how different it was. Nobody, we were all there, but nobody shared a meal. We all had ate in our room ourselves. And I ran in there into Mark just because he parked his car by our teletruck. I never physically saw Jeff when we did the Christmas Day game. I did see Rachel Nichols just and each other when she was around, because again, she lives away, but it was so different, 11 months later, and there was literally nobody.
Did it hit you how different it was? Were you hit by, wow, this is just a jarring change?
Oh, it was incredible. It was incredible to think that. And for anybody who's been down in that area, that is a gathering place.
Yeah.
And that is such a gathering place around Christmas. They usually have the big tree up and they put a hockey rink out. And it's just such a festive, fun, celebratory atmosphere. And it was none of that. It was empty.
Let me take it back a bit. Before your NBA career, I know you did ACC hoops for a while. What did you learn in those building blocks as you approached an NBA career? What did you learn along the way, particularly in the ACC job and stuff like that?
Oh, man, I learned so much in every, ESPN and coming up working there. I worked on college football, NFL, Major League Baseball, college hoops, World Cup soccer. We invented the X Games, right? Like, brought on new networks. I mean, there's just so many experiences that people like myself got to have. And whether it was working on SportsCenter, which is where I started, or moving over to the event side, everything, like anything you get to do, all the opportunities help create, the things that you hope to one day become.
Did you, I mean, you tell me all those stories about starting a network, inventing the X Games. Is it learning to take a chance? Is it preparation to take a chance? What is it?
Yeah. Oh, ESPN's always had that spirit of that entrepreneurial spirit about it. Right. And so we always had great leaders there who were doing that. And when I think about starting at ESPN, you kind of did a little bit of everything. You had to help out in the mailroom. You had to go pick up. I met Dick Vitale picking him up at the airport and driving him into the Bristol studios. And, back then our anchors, how about this? Tom Mees, John Saunders,
wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Two all-time greats.
Yeah.
John, one of everybody's all-time favorites. Bob Lee and Chris Berman. So you're talking about legendary ESPN figures and people. And I'll give you a quick fun story because at the time, there was a bunch of PA types like me working there and not working for much, right? And one of the highlights of the day was when you get to make the food run. You hoped you would make the food run because either Boomer or Bob or John or Mees, they'd pay for whoever the meal was who was going to get the food.
Oh, nice.
So it was a day that you knew you didn't have to pay for your lunch. So, but that's who those guys were too. They were just
think about picking those four out.
Just loved sports.
Think about whoever picked those four. That's pretty solid job right there.
Incredible.
Yeah, I mean that's unbelievable. So I'm trying to figure out if I'm a young producer, say I'm a young producer and I'm just I'm approaching my first couple of games. What are some tips that you would suggest? What are some things that a person in that position needs to know to succeed?
Make it about the game, right? Document the game because that is the first and foremost what everybody's tuning in to watch, right?
Okay.
I mean, all producers we've all made the same mistakes where we've gotten caught up in things that we care and know that the time and effort that's been put into things that you want to insert into the broadcast, and just be really thoughtful about if it fits and if it doesn't fit. And if it doesn't fit, that's okay, because the number one thing you have to do is get the game right? Yeah. And you can't, as to steal the Greg Popovich quote, you can't skip steps about getting those things right and moving ahead. So just understanding the basics and having a really good foundation of if you have 5 cameras or if you have 50 cameras, like I said before, everyone should have real responsibilities of what you want them to do, what they need to do under certain circumstances, how they should be framed, and by extension, what you're looking to get from each angle as you use it, either live or in replay. So it's really building a great foundation first and foremost, and being really attentive and finding those really memorable, interesting stories about people that may resonate and may make someone care more about this particular game or this particular sport.
Do you remember, were you nervous on your first game producing, and do you still feel an energy now?
Scared to death on the first game.
Do you remember it?
Oh, yeah, for all the right reasons, man. You're scared to death. Actually, I missed my first producing opportunity, and it ended up being the Missouri-Colorado 5th down game.
Oh, man.
Way back when, because my wife was pregnant with our first child, and we kind of looked at each other, and she said, "You're not going anywhere." And I said, "Whatever you say, I'm following you." So I actually missed my first game, but yeah, I remember being scared because you just want to get it right. Yeah, and you didn't want to let people down who'd helped you get in that position. And now I wouldn't say scared. But yeah, there's always a little bit of juice. That's the best part about it is, to me the thing that's becomes more and more enjoyable along the way is the unknown, and the feeling of through the preparation you're ready for whatever happens, but you don't know what's going to happen. And so that to me ends up being the most enjoyable part of it.
There's nothing wrong with being scared on your first go either. Nothing wrong.
No,
Absolutely not.
no, I was terrified. So yeah, I have no problem admitting that.
Um, let's talk about the importance of research. You mentioned it there. I know whenever I'm doing something, I feel just going into it 1,000 times better if I've researched more and prepared more. And if there's something that has happened that I couldn't prepare as much, I don't feel as well. Is that true for you as well?
100%. 100%. Like, again, I'll start with our three coaches, Hubie Brown, Mark Jackson, Jeff Van Gundy. These guys watch the NBA all the time.
Yeah.
And they're always on the phone with somebody, a former player, a former coach, somebody in the front office, somebody, and again, whether it's former or current. So in order to try and none of us are going to reach their knowledge of basketball or the NBA or anything like that, but you need to be all in on our game, and we play every night. And so being constantly attentive to the league and what's going on with the league, Mike Breen calls Knick games. So he's doing an additional 50 Knick games every year. Mark Jones just got a package with the Kings. Ryan Ruocco does work with the Nets. Dave Pash is just NBA for us, but he does a bunch of other college sports. My point being, like, everybody's fully engaged in what's going on with the league every day. And so as a producer, as an AD, as a tape person, as a graphics producer, as a PA, if you want to help be in, conversations with talent about things and having these things, you need to know what's happening in the league in order to develop your own opinions, because you can't. I always say to people who work on the NBA with us, if you love the NBA, you're stealing. This is a all-time great job because that's all you get to do. If you don't love the NBA, it doesn't mean you can't be successful, but it's going to be work, man. It's going to be work to keep up with what everybody's doing every day, reading, watching, researching, caring, whether it's talking about what happened yesterday or what happened 37 years ago yesterday, right? And so it's an everyday sport. And to me, that's one of the exciting things about it.
You mentioned Mike Breen, and I wonder how much of a luxury it is to work with a talent like that who understands the game from sort of a referee's perspective too. And I think back to game 1 of the 2018 finals with the block charge call on LeBron. How great is that for you to be able to lean on a guy like that and have that sort of knowledge resource available to you?
Listen, Mike going in the Hall of Fame as he should, right?
Yep.
Because that's who he is. He's an all-time great. But one of the details of Mike's job that you just love and respect from my position is he knows that's part of his job, is to be 100% up on every rule and everything that happens in the game. Mark and Jeff, similarly in that same game, right?
Yep.
That's part of their job from what they do, but they also interpret it differently as a coach, right?
How it would hit you as a team, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So listen, we have Breen coming in with his part of it, Mark and Jeff with their part, and then we have Steve Javie, who, listen, trust me, I remember every moment of that play with LeBron James. And so, yeah, of course. And so literally that went on for a long time too. And to keep going back and forth and reviewing it and looking at it as more information came available from each person's opinion about the situation.
How do you ride through that situation as a producer? Because you have so much knowledge out there. Are you following them? Are they following you? Is a little bit of both in that situation?
It's a little bit of both. And it's the inexact science of there's nothing written down anywhere saying, okay, under this situation, here's when you're going to lead and when they're going to lead. It's literally in the moment reaction by everybody.
Yep. That's tough, man. So you have some success in the NBA and you go along, and now you're overseeing some of the other products on ESPN, right? You're overseeing producer at this point, like a supervising producer. Tell me about that change. I talked to Drew Watkins at Turner about it. You spend a career and you work to become, proficient as a producer, and then all of a sudden, how about try management? How did you learn to do that, and how do you succeed at doing something like that?
Well, again, fortunate to have a lot of strong personalities around me now, but also before that, guiding and kind of showing the way. Because to me, people just want a direction of what you're going to do and what our goals are. And by setting to me the goal of documentation, storytelling, innovation, access, those things to be our calling cards. If your number one thing is documenting the game correctly, that gives you the direction of what you need to do. Saying that, I still have the luxury of being able to still produce as well. But I also really respect not saying here's the only way we're going to do this. You know what?
Okay.
People buy in more when they realize that their opinion matters and it counts. And like we were just talking about, in those moments, there's not a whole lot of time to think anything other but to be reactive and instinctual and proactive about what you are. And so, we have a guiding principle for what we do and how we incorporate, elements and look things and things like that are going to bond our shows to give them the similar look, but also for people to feel free to have opinions and challenge things and try new things. And again, we don't want to try dramatic things on the air. We'll talk about stuff before we do it.
Okay.
And so it's just been, I try and look at what I admired and appreciated in people who managed in the past, and still know what it feels like to be a producer in those moments, and knowing, listen, it's just you and whoever's in that moment right now. And that's all about instinct and reaction.
You watch a game differently when you're supervising than when you're actually in the game producing, don't you? There's a different feel. You can sit back and sort of take it in when you're supervising, right?
100%. 100%. You're so, again, you just get to remove yourself a little bit.
Yep.
And I think that makes it better in that way. If somebody wants some feedback, whether it's in a control room or a truck, which has its advantages to some degree, but I'll be honest with you, some of the best feedback I've gotten and some of the things that I've noticed that I think have been valuable for others has been when I just watch it at home or somewhere removed like everybody else. Because when you're in that truck or control room or whatever, you're influenced by all the other data that you then see coming in. Versus when you're somewhere removed, you only see what the final product is, which ultimately is what all the fans see.
Yeah, that's what matters. When you're in that room, you're seeing all the traffic and everything that's going into the moment-to-moment decisions, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that has value in making sure people are quick, fast, but not in a hurry to process and lead and see that part of it. But the end result is really what matters the most.
For a young person who wants to grow up to be Tim Corrigan, what are the steps that they should be taking right now to learn to be an NBA producer?
I would aspire to be much higher than Tim Corrigan for starters. So I'll tell you that. But I would say this, because I when we talk to people all the time who work at ESPN and might work on other projects and want to be on the ESPN, want to be on the NBA. Mm-hmm. I had one of these conversations just 2 days ago. Someone who was working on another sport, and they said, "How do I get on the NBA?"
Okay.
And I said, it's easy for me. Be the best person on your sport, because I can promise you, now that you've sought me out and you want me to let our team know that you want to be part of us, we're going to research you. And what we want to find out is that you're a star in whatever you're doing. Doug Collins used to say, "Stay in your lane, star in your lane." He, amongst many things that Doug taught us in his time with us. And it's just such a great point of, if you're someone who will only care about being great on the NBA and not on your other assignments. And I want the person who just wants to be great, right?
Yeah.
And like I said before, it's easier if you love the NBA, but we've all come through different experiences, and getting to the NBA is a highlight for everybody. But all those other experiences that you have make you better. And when you are working on the NBA and doing other things at the same time, I think they all can complement each other and make you better. So find the value in everything you do and be great at everything you do.
So you're very busy with your job. Obviously, it requires a lot of you. How do you recharge your batteries? What do you do when you have a moment off to try to re-energize so that you can be your best?
You know what? I'm the sixth of seven kids. My wife is the sixth of seven kids. So somewhere out there, my kids have about 40 cousins, right?
There's some stuff going on.
Yeah, so we're big on family, right, and spending time with that and making that a priority as well, because part of this lifestyle that you buy into, there's compromise that you have to make on birthdays and weddings and graduations and you name it, Christmas Day, to mention a huge NBA day that's a little different in our house than it was before the NBA, but it's all rewarding at the end of the day because we all get to be part of it together. So to me, that's part of it. I'm a huge sports fan, a huge college football, NFL fan. So I watch a lot of that, and golf, and either playing golf or watching golf, and just trying to pick up little things from other sports as well that they do that we might find valuable.
Do you do that? Do you watch it that way and say, I like what they did there, maybe I could bring that into an NBA broadcast?
Oh, 100%. We all do it. We all do it with each other. And I have friends who work at other networks and do other sports, and, talking to them and sharing ideas. I mean, again, we're all at the end of the day looking to provide the best experience for everybody. So, years ago, it was, I don't want to say much more secretive, but it was, the world's changed so much now, right? And so I think people are a little bit more open-minded. And by the way, if you're watching whatever sport on whatever network, it's not hard to see what they're doing and to figure out how they went about doing it. So again, I think it's important in having relationships that you can talk to people and learn more, because the more we learn, the better we become.
Are there any technologies that you use personally or in your job that have helped you succeed?
Oh God, every day, everything we're doing, how we've all collectively worked through the pandemic with the Zooms, how we're doing some of our shows now, because with health and safety being the priority that it is, if we can have 5 people at a site instead of 75, then we're going to look hard at that and figure out, the priority of what we need to do. And it's been, across our Walt Disney brand and company for all of us to be really attentive about that. And again, we take this very seriously, and it's adjusted how we're doing our shows now.
I think it's going to also adjust going forward, because you're going to have learned so much of what can be done remotely. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. I was in the office yesterday, literally for the first time since March 11th.
Oh, wow.
And during the course of that time, our NBA team pulled off the bubble and then has done this restart. So it just speaks to the new ways to work and the collaboration of everybody. No matter where they were, everybody was as all in as they would have been under any other circumstances. So it just reflects so positively upon every part of whether it's production, operations, product, sales, technology, commercial formatting, dealing with our finance department, like all parts. We had to keep going, and we took on something that we had never done collectively in any of our careers. And so it really just speaks to how the new workplace can be.
It felt like when the stoppage happened in March, that there was a day or two of, okay, what next? And then you had to figure it out. And it's a bit of flying blind, but it is pretty impressive how people have figured it out, right?
Yeah. Oh, it's incredible. It's incredible. People love challenges,
Yeah.
right? And just like the, different departments helping each other, maybe answers coming non-traditionally from where you might have expected them to be, that kind of thing. It was that whole operation. I'm telling you, anybody who was part of that bubble or part of our restart with what we've done there, that they will reflect just so positively about how it was so much about a team coming together.
Yeah, it's a select group, honest to God. Any basketball books or books otherwise that you can recommend, either that helped you career development or just enjoyed from a basketball perspective? Tough one.
It's a good one. No, it's a good question. My wife, I think she read 31 books this past year. I think that's what she told me.
I read a dozen.
I'm going to suggest mine was a little less. Right?
She's the reader in the family.
She is the reader. She's incredible in a million ways, but she loves to read. Me less so. I will tell you, I did read Bob Iger's book, which was absolutely fabulous, and I would recommend for anybody in this industry who would want to know how Bob Iger became, the icon that he is.
Sure.
I would certainly recommend that. I'll tell you another book that I've always loved that I would recommend that, again, speaks to another iconic type figure, which is When Pride Still Mattered. It's about Vince Lombardi.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And how he played football at Fordham. He was an assistant coach under Red Blake at West Point. And he wanted to become the head coach at West Point, but, Army wanted a West Point man. So Vince kind of went and started, got involved in another football league, and the rest is history, right?
Yeah.
But it's just it's an incredible book about who he was and what he stood for and all the great things that he learned in his time at West Point. And I had a brother who worked there, so I've been down on the post, numerous times. It's just such a fabulous place, and it's just a really enjoyable, memorable, and valuable read.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of lessons in that man's life, honestly. So last question, this comes from a fan. I want to get it right. How does it feel to know that you'll never beat your sons in golf again? This comes from a Tucker Corrigan.
Okay. Well, they'd have to beat me first in order for that to have any modicum of truth, right?
So they may be stretching it a bit.
Yeah, I think so. I think maybe a little bit. Let's just say Tucker got a lot of golf balls for his birthday.
Oh man, Tim, I really do appreciate your time. Thank you so much for chatting with us and sharing your knowledge. It's been wonderful.
All right, Bo. Thank you.
Take care, man.
See you then.
Thanks again to Tim Corrigan for joining us on the Sports Business Classroom audio experience this week. I really found myself listening and learning to Tim as he worked through what it takes to be a game producer in the NBA. And boy, his experience is something that cannot be overstated. With that sort of experience, there's also lessons to be learned, and we hope you took something from that from Tim Corrigan. So thanks again to him. And remember, if you like the show, be sure to subscribe, to like, to rate us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you have any questions, get them to us. I can be reached at NBA Bo on Twitter. That's NBA BEAU on Twitter. So reach out to me there, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Sports Business Classroom audio experience.